Everyone agrees Americans need relief from the pandemic, but what kind of relief is right and what is too much? We'll talk it over with two Michiganders in Congress. And we'll take stock of the state of our region nearly a year into the coronavirus odyssey. Today is Sunday, February 28, 2021, and this is Flashpoint. All right, welcome to Flashpoint on this last day of February. As someone who overwhelmingly prefers summer to winter, getting through February always feels like progress to me. But this year, moving into March also means hitting the one-year mark of when the pandemic really hit home for most of us, when we started adopting the new normal. You've likely changed a few things about your routine. Maybe you aren't going through quite as many disinfectant wipes as you were. Maybe you leave the house a little more than you did. If you've had even the first dose of the vaccine, chances are you're feeling like the light at the end of the world's longest tunnel is finally coming into view. But let's face it, that light is still way out there in the distance. If you've lost a loved one, you may never get over the last year. And when you consider the economic wreckage this virus has splattered all over American life, the recovery seems daunting. And that's why the stakes are high as Congress has been debating the latest COVID relief package, the first under Washington's New World Order. Coming up this morning, we're going to talk with two members of the Michigan delegation, Democrat Brenda Lawrence and Republican Lisa McClain, about what should and what should not be in that bundle. The minimum wage increase was stripped from the bill. What about the other odds and ends that some feel have nothing to do with the pandemic? We'll talk about that. And can we actually tally the cost of what the pandemic has done to Southeast Michigan's business climate? There were a lot of good things happening in Detroit. Do they necessarily return when the virus subsides? We'll check the state of the region all today on Flashpoint. All right, let's start this morning with the pandemic relief package, joined today by one yes vote from the Michigan congressional delegation and one no vote from the Michigan congressional delegation. The yes vote belongs to Democratic Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. The no vote belongs to Republican Congresswoman Lisa McClain. Great to have you both back with me on Flashpoint. Congresswoman Lawrence, let me start with you because you have heard by now all of the complaints about this bill being a Christmas tree with way too many presents underneath it that don't have enough to do with the pandemic. Why are those criticisms wrong? Why are you a yes?
I'm a yes because the people in this country, they need this. We are in a pandemic and we have been hit from every side and corner that you can think of. We're talking about food insecurity, which is a reality. We're talking about increasing funding for vaccines, which we know is one of the ways to get us out of this pandemic. We're talking about education, tax credits for the child tax credit, which any parent right now is really struggling, the obligations to being a parent. And we passed a $2 trillion bill for rich people in America, a tax credit that they didn't need. This vote is for the people who need it. And when we talk about communities and giving money to local governments, I use the example of Detroit that I represent. A large percentage of their tax revenue comes from gaming. Guess what? The casinos had to close down. Yeah. It was not because of their incompetence or anything they did wrong. And so I can go example after example, the increased use of health departments, which are funded by counties and local municipalities. The numbers there have increased. The increased overtime from our first responders, fire departments, and police departments, they did not budget for that. And unlike the government who can just print more money, local governments must balance their budget.
Yeah. Let me let Congresswoman McClain in on this. Before I ask you about the specifics of this, was this an easy no vote for you, or was this a tough one to turn aside?
This was an extremely easy no vote for me. And as much as I agree with Brenda on we need to get the money back into our districts to help the people that actually are suffering from COVID, but I would offer a couple things. Number one, there's already $1 trillion, T with a T, trillion with a T, of COVID relief money that has not been spent yet. Now we want to borrow more money on the backs of our children and grandchildren when we haven't even spent the first trillion. Number two, we have to stop calling it a COVID relief bill, because in my mind, if we're going to pass a COVID relief bill, I would think it would make sense to have more than 10% of those dollars go to actually COVID relief. I'm hard pressed to understand why $2 billion goes to foreign countries. I would rather have that $2 billion come back to the people and the business owners in the 10th district. I need someone to explain to me how $112 million for a tunnel in Silicon Valley helps the people of the 10th district for the COVID relief. So for me, I'm in 100% agreement that we need a COVID relief bill. We just need more than 10% of the dollars to go to actually COVID relief. That's why this is a Pelosi payoff bill, not a COVID relief bill.
Congresswoman Lawrence, you see this all the time in spending bills. They get loaded down with lots of extras. What do you say about the argument that this was no time for that?
I agree. I resist and deplore these what we call poison pills. But when I'm looking at this bill and I'm looking at the number of evictions in my district, I look at the people and the phone calls and the letters that are telling me we need help. The unemployment in our country has not started to improve and people are hurting. And I know for a fact that this bill and what the intent of it is so important. And, you know, we can have this debate about the tax credits and cuts that we gave to the rich, the $2 trillion. I can tell you all the things that are bad about that. Did some business benefit from it? But they didn't even ask for it or need it. It was just a gift. This is something that we know in America, that the vaccines, the child care, the hunger, the evictions, the unemployment, the small business loans, and a lot of the problems with the small business loans when it first rolled out hindered a lot of people from using that. So the amount of money that's being quoted today is not a reality because people have been given another opportunity with training and changing the.
Let me interrupt for just a sec. Does it make any sense, though, to have things in there like a tunnel, like backfilling union pensions that were overspent and mismanaged long before the pandemic hit?
I would debate you on pension funds being mismanaged or overspent. But the reality is, if your father or your mother was working for a automotive company or a steel mill, and it's time for them to retire, they did not mismanage that money. We need to have laws to hold people accountable if they do. But when it comes to pensions and it comes to protecting them and allowing some quality of life while we go after the bad players, I say absolutely. But we have to be sensitive to our pensions. And in Michigan, a strong union state, I think we have a higher level of accountability to protecting the pensions that a lot of people in non-union places don't get.
Congresswoman McClain, we've heard complaints from the other side saying, oh, now all of a sudden Republicans are worried about spending when for the 4 years of the Trump administration, the deficit ran out of control. It's interesting that we're kind of seeing now the old school positions. The Democrats are accused of never seeing a spending bill they don't like, and that Republicans don't ever want to spend money on anything worthwhile. You certainly understand that there's really no such thing as a perfect bill, right?
100%. And I think we have to strive for progress rather than perfection. And I would agree that we need to take care of our people in our districts. But what I'm going to press back on is, if we're going to call this a COVID relief bill, then let's put COVID relief dollars in there. If we want to bail out the blue states and bail out the pensions, let's put a bill and call it the pension bailout program. And let's debate it and let's vote on it. We have to start talking with words that matter, right? And words do matter. So as much as I want to debate the pension bailout bill, I just don't think putting the pension bailout bill and the COVID relief bill makes any sense.
Let me ask you both before we have to wrap it up. I want to let you both weigh in on things that were unique to your own committee assignments this past week. Congresswoman Lawrence, you're on the Oversight Committee, which means you were a part of that hearing with Louis DeJoy, the Postmaster General. All politics is local, so for me, it took a month for my birthday card to arrive last month from Florida from my mother, who never misses my birthday. It was a really curious hearing with Mr. DeJoy. Can you give me your take quickly on what you think is going on with the Postal Service?
The Postal Service, which is ingrained in our Constitution, is a service. It has service standards. 91% of America has confidence in the Postal Service. And he has stated that he has a plan to reduce those standards and to charge more money, which makes no sense. I'm going to give you less, but charge you more. In the Postal Service, I know that we take an oath of office to serve and protect. The creed of the Postal Service, no rain, sleet, or snow will stop us from delivering. And this is just unacceptable. They need management. We know that the COVID virus and all these other things has impacted us. Lead, be a leader, find the policies and make sure that we continue to be a postal service that we can believe in. And I just want to interject something. There are no blue states and there are no red states. When I was a mayor, I didn't have a red or a blue city. I had a city. And I wish that more of my colleagues would come to Congress, not saying that I'm going to help the people who think like me and then hurt the others who don't.
I want to let Congresswoman McClain weigh in on her committee issue, which is she's on the Armed Services Committee. Can you give me your thoughts about the decision to use military action in Syria this past week?
Absolutely. I think it was the correct decision. We must remain strong against Iran. And that's exactly why I initiated the Iran Nuclear Verification Act. And I brought that bill up because it is imperative that we not get back into an agreement and we begin to lift sanctions when Iran has not held up to their end of the bargain. Listen, we must stand strong and we must protect not only the United States, but also our allies. There is no way that we can let Iran have nuclear weapons and become a nuclear state. That is just going to be disastrous for everyone involved.
Congresswoman Lisa McClain, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, thank you both so much for the time. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll have you back soon again on Flashpoint. You bet.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Back with more in just a minute on Flashpoint on Local 4.
The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Show this weekend at the Hot Tub Store Rochester, corner of Avon and Rochester Road. Hot Tub Swim Spas in stock for immediate delivery. Save thousands, $79 a month. Hot Tub and Swim Spa Show this weekend. Hot Tub Store Rochester. Call 1-800-SPA-SALE. MichiganSpaShow.com.
Oh, your nose is cold. Perfect timing. We were just about to fire up the furnace.
Winter's almost over, and we're clearing out our unused inventory. For a limited time, Thornton & Grooms is offering a free furnace with the purchase of an air conditioner. Call now to book a free quote. Thornton & Grooms. We're in tune with your comfort.
You have your own voice, personality, and needs. That's why Honda created a car completely unique to you. Because you don't fit a mold, nor should you. For just $189 a month, get behind the wheel of a 2021 Civic designed for the driver's needs. Never follow the crowd. Pave your own way. Visit your Detroit area Honda dealer to test drive a technology-packed sedan today.
The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Show this weekend at the Hot Tub Store Rochester, corner of Avon and Rochester Road. Hot Tub Swim Spas in stock for immediate delivery. Save thousands, $79 a month. Hot Tub and Swim Spa Show this weekend. Hot Tub Store Rochester. Call 1-800-SPA-SALE. MichiganSpaShow.com.
Your coronavirus questions have been coming in non-stop. So many, in fact, that having Dr. McGeorge answer only the top 5 questions wouldn't even really make a dent. Top 10? Not nearly enough. That's why he's here for you Monday morning at 6:30.
I'm answering all of your top 20 questions, from what you can take the day you get the vaccine to whether or not it's okay to have a cocktail afterward.
Monday on Local 4 News Today. Want your questions answered? Go to the Good Health page to submit yours, and Dr. McGeorge might answer it on the air.
Welcome back. The Detroit Regional Chamber is out with its State of the Region report. Pretty complicated project, one would think, given the pandemic, and trying to figure out exactly where on the timeline we are. Let's talk about it with Sandy Barua, the head of the Detroit Regional Chamber. Dennis Archer Jr., up there on the upper left, on his birthday weekend, by the way, joins us. He's the head of Ignition Media. Happy birthday, Dennis. And Chad Livengood, the senior editor of Crain's Detroit Business. Sandy, let me start with you. You describe in this document a K-shaped recovery. For those unfamiliar with what that means, tell me what you see.
Yeah, there's two big findings out of the report. One of them is certainly the K-shape. And what the K-shape refers to is that simultaneously two things are happening. One, a big chunk of our society and a big chunk of our sectors are not just doing well, but they're actually thriving. But simultaneously, we are seeing sectors and certain demographic groups doing poorly and getting worse. So those two things are happening simultaneously. It's the opposite of what we used to hear about a rising tide lifts all boats.
And the other finding that you think is key to this?
Yeah, so the second big finding is that this recessionary period is far, far different than what we experienced a dozen years ago with the Great Recession. One, we are no longer in a situation where when the U.S. gets a cold, Michigan and Detroit get the flu. We are going to be in much better condition coming out in our economy generally than we were out of the Great Recession. We're not going to see this slow slog climb. We are really poised for some really strong economic growth starting later this year and certainly into 22. I mean, really strong economic growth.
Which feels really good. Dennis Archer Jr., you're in the restaurant world. Can you be that optimistic about what's ahead?
No, I mean, I can be definitely optimistic about the future, but if you were to compare what that future is, say, to a robust 2019 rather in our space, I don't think we get back there this year, but I am optimistic that we're on the path. A number of my colleagues in the greater downtown area are just now reopening. Some still haven't opened because they don't feel they can operate profitably at 25%. They most certainly couldn't operate profitably with simply outdoor dining. And so this report, and I applaud Sandy, Tammy, and the team for the report, and I particularly applaud them bringing attention to both the hospitality and entertainment industries, as well as the plight of people of color and people of lesser education. Because if you go through that report over and over and over again, Devin, you see that Black folks, people of color, and people that do not have a graduate degree are hit harder no matter how you measure it. And so this is just a reminder that we need to further educate our folks and bring the education level up across the board.
And that divide, sadly, seems to be how it always is with just about any crisis. Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just real quickly, I would put restaurants and restaurant workers more on that lower side of that K, to Dennis's point.
Well, he makes an important point here, Chad, though. We have talked a lot, I think, through this last year about the people that have been hit the hardest, about the losers in this deal. I'm not sure we've talked as much about the winners. There have been people who have thrived and done really well over the last year.
Yeah, I mean, all Dennis has to do is look out the window of his restaurant across Campus Merces, at One Campus Merces, where Dan Gilbert and Quicken Loans, or Rocket Companies as they're now called, posted a $9.4 billion profit on an unbelievable year, with everybody basically working in their basements selling mortgages at 130% more mortgages originated last year. Part of that's because of how favorable the terms were, because of record low interest rates and people refining their houses while they're spending money on their houses like never before. Right now, the home improvement business is gangbusters. You can't find people to bang out walls and do all those renovations you wanted to do, so that you can live with your surroundings while you're working from home all the time. So it is a sort of a tale of two cities right now, and just downtown with the restaurants. I don't think you can discount in December we recorded 200,000 fewer hospitality workers in Michigan than we had in December of 19.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Wow.
From the hotels to the convention centers to restaurants and bars and everything in between. This industry has been really, really decimated, and that's why the recovery of it is uncertain, and it adds to the pressure we're going to start seeing at the state level about reopening office space in downtown Detroit. I was in the Renaissance Center the other day, just kind of took a walk, and it's creepy how empty that place is, and it makes it even harder to navigate it, even though it was already kind of a maze.
It's already a terrible labyrinth to begin with. But Dennis, let me stay with restaurants then there for a second. We've watched a number of other states that have had a very different approach. The joke is that Gretchen Whitmer has been the economic hero of the year for restaurateurs in Indiana and Ohio, because that's where people have gone. I have not heard a lot of pushback from you, even though a lot of your fellow restaurateurs have been filing lawsuits and putting up quite a fight with what has been directed from the governor's mansion.
Well, let me say the following about me personally. I personally feel that, and my colleagues and partners in our practice, our restaurant, believe that the governor is doing what she thinks is in the best interest of the citizens of the state of Michigan. You do look around at other states and you find different extremes. I mean, we are more open than the state of California, but the state of Florida is wide open.
Yep.
And so you see a number of different approaches around the country. I think we will not know which approach worked best until a few years down the line, and we look back retrospectively to see how the trend shaped up. But back to Chad's point, I mean, the reason I can't, Devin, give a solid prediction about when we come back as a restaurant compared to, say, robust 2019 is, to use his example, the rocket companies, they recorded those groundbreaking numbers, record-breaking numbers, with all of their folks working from home.
Right.
And so I don't know what the impetus is for them to bring everyone back downtown. So even if they bring 50% of the people downtown, at some point those buildings will fill back up, I believe, with other tenants, but that's going to be some time. So I think the downtown hospitality is going to trail, say, even, for instance, neighborhood hospitality.
Sandy, I wanted to make sure that we got to that part of this. As you look toward a recovery, do you feel confident that you know and understand what the changes are that have been made over the last year that are going to stay? A lot of people are going to keep working from home.
Listen, I would love to know the answer to that question, and if I did, I would rent myself out and I wouldn't need my day job. So here's Sandy's rule of crises, is that in a crisis, we always think we're going to change more than we actually do, but at the end of the day, we never change as much as we probably should. So, how we are going to react to this crisis, here's what we know. We know there's going to be changes. We know that our lives are going to be forever different in some form or fashion. Exactly how that is and exactly how much that is the $10,000 question, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know. Obviously, work from home. Yeah, and it's not just work from home that's going to accelerate. It is work from a whole different zip code. I mean, right now, if you're Dan Gilbert, and this is exactly what he's doing, he doesn't care if his employees live downtown Detroit, Troy, or Denver. And the way they're recruiting new people is that they're getting people from Denver say, hey, join Quicken. Don't worry about moving to the Detroit region yet. Work with us for a while, but maybe a year from now, you'll learn us and you'll want to move here, right? So it is really creating a new flexibility for both employers and employees that we have never seen in society before, and that's going to be a big change.
Denver, I'm thinking about packing up my green screen and trying Sydney. Chad, let me let you weigh in on what kind of changes you think stay.
Yeah, I mean, Jay Farner, CEO of Rocket Companies, just talked to us the other day about that issue that they can recruit people from around the world. I mean, they're pretty serious about that, and it's changed. They're right now reconfiguring their conference rooms so they can have 3 people in the conference room and 6 people in maybe 6 different states or countries. And so this is totally flipped how we work, where we work on its head. And I cannot see it going back to the way it used to be. And so we have a lot of challenges to adapt to that. I mean, City of Detroit this year, they were projecting $85 million in loss in income tax for the city of Detroit from city income tax from people working at home and remote, and that's going to have a major impact on the city's financial future and staying out of bankruptcy court in the future. For that matter.
That's one we haven't heard people talk much about. All right, Chad, Sandy, Dennis, thanks so much for the time, guys. Really appreciate it. I gotta leave it there and get to a break. Happy birthday, Dennis. We'll take a quick break. Back with more on Flashpoint right after this.
Hi, I'm Kathy from Independent Carpet One. Our staff and customers are like family, and we want to reassure you that we have taken every step necessary to ensure that you have a safe and positive experience while shopping in our showroom. This is a great time to learn about our Healthy Living installation, which provides a cleaner and more sanitized environment proven to inhibit the growth and spread of germs and viruses. We not only care about you, but your family too. Contact us to learn more or stop into our showroom today.
Welcome winter. Joe's Produce Gourmet Market in Livonia will create warm memories with a pot of homemade soup. Sit fireside with a warm cup of cocoa or smooth glass of wine. Joe's carefully selected, tasty in-season produce, fresh seafood, succulent meats, homemade breads, and desserts. Shopping for the freshest and finest is now easier than ever. Delivered. Download our app or sign up online. Joe's Produce in Livonia also offers convenient curbside pickup.
So last night at dinner, my husband told me that I look 15 years younger because of this procedure, and he doesn't fit. Amazing Lift is a unique approach to facial aging that reverses loose skin and wrinkles of the face, eyes, and neck. If you're over 45, what are you waiting for? Call 866-6-AMAZING today. That's 866-6-AMAZING.
Local 4 Defender Karen Drew, uncovering the stories that affect you, fighting for change, getting results. She revealed a human trafficking survivor's push for a big change in the law.
I was charged with prostitution when I had escaped.
The next day, results. Then, dangerous violations exposed.
And some riverfront properties are ignoring the city's demand to make corrections.
Again, results. Karen Drew, Sean Lay, the Local 4 Defenders.
Quick congratulations to everyone associated with the Detroit Riverfront, voted this past week by the readers of USA Today as the best Riverwalk in America. That's against really stiff competition. So congratulations. Meet the press next. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Flashpoint.